Hello.
I'm eating, everybody. I'm hungry.
You at the cookout. You're allowed to eat. I already ate.
I
Right.
know.
I might get up at one point or have one of the kids bring me a plate because my stuff is in the oven and it's almost done.
What time is it over there? 7:00, right? Oh, okay. Yeah, I was about to say we already ate.
Seven ain't bad at my house.
Yeah.
No, 7 is a good time.
Yeah, it'll be done in like 10 minutes, so that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Mm. You just gotta eat before 8.
I eat at 1, 5, and 9 times I eat.
Nine is not. See, I try to not go past 9 because I feel like 9 is too late, especially for the kids.
I start late. So I drink water from like the time I get up to 1. That's like my schedule. And then when I eat at 1, whatever I eat, it lasts me until 5. Then I eat before I get on like my sessions. And then after that, I eat something strong.
So you're not eating anything until 1 p.m.?
Yep. I fast until 1 p.m.
Oh, you fast. Okay, that's different. Because I was going to say, ooh, child, my blood sugar be done dropped.
We know,
I drink water.
Ashley. We know.
Can't do it.
I drink water.
Can't do it.
Drink water. So
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I'm on my health kick. I've been pretty good. So
Listen,
it's been working.
It's hard to keep up with that though. It's
Yeah.
like once you get started, it's good for a while. But for me, I always end up falling off, and then it's so long to get back to working out, eating healthy, all of that. It's hard.
at
I've
least
been busting my butt for a year,
That's
almost
good.
a whole year. So
I
yeah,
can
it is hard. Mindset is like what I had to learn that you had to change first in order for me to do it. So
get on the exercise kick. I've had spurts and long spurts of time where I might have been exercising or doing some type of workout, but diet, I love food too much. I can't do it.
yeah,
My therapist told me you should check into the Mindset Mentor. It's a
What is
podcast.
that?
What's that?
It's a podcast, and she talks about how everything we talk about, but how you need to just change your mindset, and then like it'll change
Mm-hmm.
the way you eat, the way you think.
Yep.
She told me that because I'm doing dissertation and my mindset is jacked up.
I completely agree because I had to do it for working out. I could not have gotten this far if I didn't change my mindset first, because working out is really hard. It is so hard trying to work out and eat right.
Yeah.
It is a battle.
Working out is the easy part for me.
That's what I'm saying. I can work out. I can't do the food. Maybe I got to do a mindset change. But I've done mindset changes in so many other areas of my life. I feel like, dang, just let me have the food. Can I just have my food?
Okay,
Let
let me tell you what a nutritionist said on TikTok, because I love the TikTok. She said it's not about what you take out, it's about what you put in. So I thought about it. Instead of taking things from my diet, I added to it. So that means if I'm going to indulge in something like a cookie or something, I have to make sure I'm also drinking water, eating my vegetables, putting my protein in. You can still have what you want to have. Just make sure that you're also, including the nutritional thing. So that was another thing.
I can do that. You're telling me I can eat more. I can do that.
Oh my God.
Nobody told you that, Butterbean.
We got it. Y'all know I'm always the one to cut us off, but we got a couple people on. So Mika said, hey girl.
Hey, Mika.
Always here, loyal.
No, Mika's like, I told Mika, I said, you eligible for the top fan badge. As soon as I figure out how to give it to you.
Oh wait, we can do that on Facebook, right?
It does it automatically. We can't do it. It does it automatically. Once we hit a certain number or something, it'll start doing it. So she gonna get one. As soon as it start doing it, she gonna get one.
Because I opened it up. I was like, Mika always there.
She is.
Y'all, hold on, pause. Why Elijah just text me and say, when the last time you worked out? You on live lying.
I was gonna say that. I just didn't want to be the one.
That's you on live lying.
You on live lying right now. Win.
Yes, Elisha for the win.
Yes, on live.
I'm gonna tell y'all what he texted me because I'm like,
y'all, these husbands.
Ash, why you lying about your health? Just say you ain't been working out and keep it moving.
I have worked out before. I didn't say how long it's been.
Oh my God.
These husbands they own here. Get y'all
down, boy.
Yeah, I was like, Ashley,
get up, Rashad.
Right, Mika, just gonna call her out just like that. Yep.
Own husband. He gonna love me.
Oh my God.
Mm-mm. So I did want to talk about one of my friends, Tiska. If she's on here, she'll see her name. But she has sent me some like some stuff about David Mann, and he everybody who don't know David Mann, he's Mr. Brown.
It's your granddaddy.
Where's your granddaddy? That's David Mann. That's Cora's husband, or Cora, that's her daddy.
Why
It's
you
Cora
call me
daddy, but it's her
Cora?
husband.
Her name is Tamala. Jesus.
Tamala
Right. I
Mann.
know. Why don't you call her core?
That's Cora. That's Cora daddy and Tamala Mann's husband. But he talked about his mental health, and he talked about how he was depressed. And I mean, he went in like he was just like he couldn't do anything, and he couldn't say anything about it. He was real quiet about it. He would just kind of he had some he had suicidal ideation. Like he went into it, and he was just talking about the depression in Black men or in his Black self. And I thought that was dope that he went out there and said that, because obviously we're trying to get more Black men into their mental health. And I mean, when you see people like that get into their mental health, it's inspiring to other Black men. So, which I think.
I'm with it. I want more Black men to know that they can't, because the mere fact that he felt like he had to keep it to himself and deal with it by himself, that's the biggest issue. Like, you really don't have to, but Black men really feel like they have to. It's like this thing about it where it's like, I got to be there for my family. I got to show up. I got to provide. I can't let this hold me back. So then they just dealing with it internally, which can cause all sorts of problems. This is why men have higher rates of heart attacks and all those types of things. I really think that plays a part.
Yeah. He was saying how he like, he's a breadwinner, like not only the breadwinner, because Tamala, she's in her bag too, but like he was just talking about how he has to make money for his family. He has to stand up for his family. And it just made me think about that. Like Black men, I think I was talking to Auntie Keisha about this, get beat down so much by society all the time. And so then you get society, and then you get people, and then you get other women, and you know what I mean? Like you just get the society that beats you down. And so then you have to put on this brave face because you are a Black man and you are trying to be strong and not live up to the stereotype that other Black men get thrown up under, or up under that big Black men ain't crap blanket. And so he was just, I mean, he inspired me. I liked it. Hey, Chrissy.
Hey, Chrissy. Chrissy's a top fan too. She dope. She be sharing. She share our stuff and everything. She share posts and everything.
Well, Chrissy talked about the Black men in therapy too. Actually, Chrissy, I was just sharing a topic. I don't know if you got here in time, but I was telling them about the Black men and the lack of therapy and depression, and about David Mann that we talked about this morning. That was this morning, y'all.
Well, I in my experience, like I haven't yes, I have. Let me not lie. I have done therapy with Black men who have struggled with depression. But in my personal life, and what I've seen is that it also presents differently for them. We talk a lot about how it looks differently in Black women, but it also looks differently in Black men as well. Because I mean, I've seen it go from where it's just like rage and anger, or it presents that way where you think this person is really angry, but they're actually depressed or really sad about something, or like feeling like they're not good enough. They can't keep up with societal standards and all those feelings. From that all the way to like just completely being distant from the people that they love and care about. And they tend to like, it's either they let it all out in the wrong way, or they hold it all in until they can't take it anymore.
Yeah. I have I got some Black male patients. I actually love the Black male patients because first of all, the therapy be funny because I could just be myself. I could just talk like this. What my boss said is that signal shifting. I was like, yeah, it's code switching. So but I could just talk like this, and like just talking to them, I feel bad for some people because I'll give you an example. Some of them have like, spouses, and they're trying to do everything for their family, and they're trying to make money. But then, sometimes I hear you don't make enough money. And then when they say, well, okay, so I started trying to work more. Okay, well, even though you're working more, now you're never home. And so it's like it's never an easy balance.
Mm-hmm.
But then, you know, after a while you start getting depressed or something like that. And then some people start looking outward instead of inward. And then there's a problem too. So it seems like they too much and not enough at the same damn time.
Yep. I actually have a few Black male clients too now. I'm so happy I do, because I didn't have male clients, period, for a long time. And I was like, I don't know why men not attracted to me in this field here, but I got some now, and I love working with Black male clients. In fact, I've noticed a trend with the ones I do have. They've said things along the lines of, I'm trying to figure out what it is to be a man. And you talking about 30 and 40 plus year old men saying, I'm just now trying to learn what it really is to be a man, and not what I was taught it was to be a man, because I was taught to hold it together, to hold it down for your family, to be tough. So showing any type of vulnerability or emotion is the opposite of what I was taught, but I don't know if that's right anymore. So you got grown men trying to unlearn stuff that they have been living for 20, 30 plus years.
Yeah. Oh, I see Mika said something. She said, I saw when David talked about his depression on Tamron Hall. I think that's her name. He got really emotional. He did get emotional.
Yeah. Several Black men have talked about that. Well, celebrity Black men have talked about their mental health. Charlemagne promotes mental health. He's been seeing a therapist for years. I think J. Cole talks about mental health. Kendrick Lamar, a lot of them actually now, I feel like they understand how important it is.
Yeah.
And I think even I haven't heard it so much now, but I've heard, like, in the past, I've even heard like songs talking about mental health where we would sing it, we would be dancing to it, oh, this beat is dope, bopping to it, and not realizing what the words were actually saying. And so now hearing those songs from when I was in like middle school, high school, listening to them now, I'm like, whoa, like that stuff was deep. Mm-hmm. So these celebrities were hurting. It's just they couldn't come out and say it. And now that mental health is becoming a bigger thing, they're now speaking up about it. And I think it's great. I love to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, what song? What name one song? Because I need to figure out what that is. I don't know none.
Swimming pools. Go listen to Kendrick Lamar, Swimming Pools.
Oh, okay. And I heard Kendrick Lamar.
It was another song. It was literally about suicide. Like, I want to die, like saying things like that in the song. I can't remember the name of the song.
No, I think he was like, push me to the edge. All my friends are dead and stuff like that. Was it that song?
No, that's another one. Actually, that one was when I was in college, like when we were older. So I knew like that something about that song. I don't know the name of the song. It's just like when you hear the songs like on the radio, or you hear like them playing the throwbacks, you're like, oh, that used to be my jam. Then you hear the words and you like, oh, I was dancing to that when I was in high school. What?
Listen, one of my favorite rappers ever constantly wrote songs about his mental health and where he was at. DMX.
I was about to say DMX, the snake, the rat, the cat, the dog was literally about like him going through it mentally.
Yeah, the Omen slipping, he was literally talking about being in those spaces, but he was very open about it anyway. Like, he would talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we got a question.
We do. So what do you guys think about the decline of teachers and how parents are not on the same sheet of music? So when the kids come to school, they don't care about what the teachers have to say because mom doesn't, and it affects their grades. Ooh.
Oh, I'm trying to process that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to tie that back to mental health, right? Because it can be confusing for a kid. A lot of the times in therapy, I'm pushing for the collaboration between me as the therapist and the school, the teachers, and the parents. Because it can be confusing for kids when you go to school and the rules are one way, or there's, one way to behave, and then you come home and it's completely different. So you take a kid who has absolutely no structure at home, Mom is like, you ain't got to sit down and do your homework. You don't have to eat at a certain time. You don't have to go to bed at a certain time. You just do whatever you want. And then that kid goes to school, and now there's like a strict schedule. There are times that you do things, and it's not appropriate to do certain things at other times. That's like significant difficulties mentally for that child. Yeah. And then when it comes to the teachers, yeah, I mean,
is there a decline of teachers?
There's a decline of teachers. It's not specifically with this situation though. It's also COVID, and they're not getting paid enough to do everything that they're doing.
I would say from a systemic standpoint, I think there's two systems being battled. You have the education system that is not very supportive of teachers, whether it comes from pay or just in how they're treated. And then you have parents at home trying to battle the system, like trying to get the resources they need. And I think with COVID, it exposed both of those systems. I mean, yes, we knew that there were issues, but I think COVID clearly exposed it. And I think that there's going to be a battle, and there's going to be an ongoing battle with these two systems trying to operate, but the people that's operating within these systems are pushing back. And so I think there is a decline in teachers that are going to other fields because they're burnt out. Teachers have their own mental health that they have to worry about. I worked in the school system for a year. And if the school doesn't have any sort of like, let's just say social emotional support for children, it looks chaotic at school. And let me be the first to say, I was there. I looked at them kids, and if there's stuff going on at home, it is going to show up in school. And you have these teachers and these limited staff trying to figure out how to teach and hold the emotional and social and emotional functioning of a child, especially ones who have a lot of other environmental and neurological things going on as well. So I've seen it firsthand, and it is chaotic. It can get chaotic. Let's just say that.
Yeah, and I think like my mother-in-law is a teacher in middle school, and she sometimes, tells us things that are going on at the school. She's in Atlanta, Lithonia, Georgia, and it's a lot of these parents. I think we have to realize when it comes to teachers not being able to connect to parents, it's not a teacher's job really, but you have to wonder, well, how are these parents raised? What is the dynamic there? Do these parents even know how to really be parents? Because I'm a big proponent of like parenting classes if you need to figure some things out or learn some things. But when I see this question, I kind of think about specific scenarios of how it can be different between home and school, like Auntie Amber was talking about. Like, for example, I know a lot of us, we know in school, the kids get told, do not put your hands on another student. But we know at home, a lot of us teach our kids, if they put their hands on you, you have a right to defend yourself. So again, these kids get confused, but in reality, I'm not sure if that's a bad lesson. Like my son just came home today talking about something that happened in school with some kids putting their hands on him. And I'm like, what did you do? And he said, I tried to push him off me, but he still got in trouble, even though 3 or 4 kids were bothering him. So it's that, and they didn't even call me. That's the thing. Some schools don't even communicate with parents at all. And that's a problem too, because I'm like, why didn't they call me about that?
The thing about parents and teachers is that parents and teachers need to be collaborating on the same page. So and not only when a child gets in trouble, or not only when there's a problem with that child. So they like at the schools that our kids go to, they have an app, and you can talk back and forth to the teacher. Now, I mean, some parents are not just going to be up at the school all day. People have to work. People have other things to do. But if you do have a child and they may be having some problems or some social emotional issues, and they take that stuff to school, those are the parents that need to be in the classroom the whole time. When you have a straight A student and they're sitting there like this with their hands crossed, those are not the parents that need to be, and not that they don't need to be, but that's not the picture of the parents that people are looking for. They're looking for the parents that have the problems, that are causing problems in school, and then they have problems at home. But the reason why some of those parents don't come is because they are the problem. And so whenever you are the problem, you're not going to be the first one to go up to the school and try to handle the problems. Or you might see some maladaptive behaviors as teachers. So I think with trying to bridge that gap is calling the parents, maybe not only calling the parent to say, little Timmy, kicked another student today, but calling the parent to say, hey, why don't you come in and come volunteer? I think it'll be really helpful for him if you were here and, you could show your face. And then that way teachers can have that reinforcement behind them, because some parents going to sit back there with the belt like this. They can have that reinforcement, and then that child can feel like they care, and the parent is doing their due diligence for the child.
That's difficult when you have a child. That's difficult when you have a parent who is low income. And we've had it at my school where there is a kid that I had to test who literally got calls home every day because we could not figure out like what his a clear diagnosis for him. Now in let's just say if he got with educators who didn't know him, he'd be considered ODD or getting older conduct disorder, but we know that there's something else. And literally all of us have all said that we were like scared and nervous that like him growing older into high school, somebody would treat him like, right to the system. It'd be the school to prison pipeline. But his mom, who works overnight, can't get there. And let me back that up. She was getting there, but she had a baby and things of that nature. So I don't know if it works out for lower income individuals. I don't know if they could be as involved as they want to be. Not saying that they don't want to be, but I don't know if their lifestyle, like missing work means missing money, which means can't pay bills. So they have to decide whether should I go up here and deal with this, or should I make sure I got the lights on when my kids get home? Because if not, now I have CPS at my door because I chose my child over our basic need of shelter. You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
Really hard balance.
You know how I would remedy that? Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You know how I would remedy that is that we could have a stand-in. Because even though you can't get in there, they have kids who don't have fathers. They have an uncle come and stand in. They have some people ain't got nothing to do. They have people that come and they're like, can you go up to the school for little Juju? He's in there acting up. You know what I mean? The kids need to feel like they care. I understand we're keeping the lights on. I know that's something that you have to do. But then that's when you have to reach out to family units. And I think that's difficult because family units are not what they used to be. We don't have grandma backing us the way that we used to be. But just providing some kind of stand-in or allowing, even giving that option. I don't think parents are given that option that you can have Uncle Terry come to the school instead of me today. I don't think that they have, it's up to the teachers and administrators and the school counselors. I have another thought about that later. To provide those insights to where you're like, okay, well, what else can we do?
Yep, you're right, because we do ask at the school I was at. We did ask if there's someone else that we can put as a release of information on file, so that way, just in case we can't contact you, we can contact this person. So you are right, having that additional support from family or somebody,
community and family resources. That's really what a lot of people need. They need community resources and they need family, and everybody doesn't have that. It just depends on where they're at.
Yeah, and I just wanted to make a comment about bridging the gap, and then even the systemic issues that Auntie Keish and Auntie Shug were talking about, because I've noticed that resources is a big thing. Like if the school doesn't have resources, if they don't have the budget to hire additional staff to provide that social and emotional support for kids, then it's just not there. But I have seen that a lot of schools are adding, in addition to having the school counselor, they're also adding social workers. So whereas Auntie Ashley was just saying, oh, well, it's not really like the teacher could dig into the parents' past and like their current situation, and it's not really their job, but like if they want to understand the kid, they could do that. They now have social workers that are taking that role, who are learning about the situation at home, looking into it more instead of looking at just how this kid is behaving in school. And so that is like a step towards bridging that gap, but also just depends on the resources. Like if the school system doesn't have the budget for it, then they're not getting that resource.
And we can talk about budget because that goes back into voting. You have to look at what legislator is supporting mental health. Now, I know you're probably like, I don't want to get political. Well, school is political, period. Like that is how you get funding. That's because true. Through the state, you have to figure out what state representative is supportive of that initiative. And different states get different amounts of money based on their legislative representative. So always be informed about who is getting what and what money is going where.
Yep. Well, we have another question. Well, anybody have final thoughts on that question? Because Auntie Suge, you said I got another thought about counselors and
It was about the school counselors. I'm gonna look it up. I'm trying to figure out what the job is. That's my thing. I won't go into that because it's very negative. But I want to know what the job is because I'm underwhelmed.
Not you feeling like this about the school counselors.
well, this is the thing. You know what?
But when I said this about the life coaches, it was a problem.
I always explain to the parents too because they'll tell me like I'm like, is there a history of counseling or therapy? Yeah, they've been doing school counseling with the school counselor for like 3 years now since they've been in the school, and I'm like, So the school counselor is focusing on how that kid is functioning in the classroom and at school only. They may ask some questions about home, but from what I've seen, and if there are any school counselors on here, you can correct me if you want to. From what I've seen, it's mainly focused on how they're managing and functioning in school. When it comes to, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ash.
At my daughter's middle school here, their school counselor set up an emotional wellness group. So any kids that are having emotional issues can come to that group after school. And it's some of it is during school. So some schools, school counselors really are trying. They really are trying.
And I wanted to say my school was doing the same thing. They had a conflict resolution, like a girls group that they set up because the girls were being bullied. There was at least 3 of us that was there, but the referrals kept coming in. Like these kids was going through it. And so even though that we try to focus on how they can pay attention in class, it was a hard balance because we have the teachers who's trying to teach, but this kid is disrupting the entire environment and we know what's going on at home. But technically, we cannot explain to them all the things that are going on at home because technically the school and let's just say the outside provider that's coming in can exchange information if there's no release of information on file. Now, that depends on what state you're in because good practice is you're able to do that, but best practice is to get a release of information on file. But we can't really go out and be like, yeah, mom's at home doing drugs or dad's doing this. We can't exchange that information. All we can do is try to work on the behavior that's going on so they can at least get through class. Yep. Now I'm not saying that we aren't working on resources and stuff because there were parents who needed that, but it's a lot that goes into trying to get a kid that's emotionally unstable to sit down in school and to work through school.
Yeah. We did when I was in England, I did my first practicum at a school and working with the school psychologist, and it was a good experience. But I figured out that that's not what I wanted to do because they couldn't go into the weeds, and so really, like Amber says, there's a fire, and they were just they were putting out the fire at the top, and I wanted the base, and that's why I had to come up out. But the school counselors in Louisiana, I'm underwhelmed.
Well,
sure. You gonna follow now? All right, next question. Who's gonna read it? Because I read the last one. We take it turns.
All right, I will. The pandemic seemed to really bring mental health to the forefront. Did you all see a significant increase in clients once the pandemic hit? If so, what were some common issues people brought to counseling therapy sessions?
Yes.
Oh, yes, child.
We are under the water. It is now the mental health pandemic. It is now, I mean, it's been going on during COVID. They just didn't say anything for whatever reason, but it is a mental health pandemic right now.
Yes.
Yep.
Christina, I actually started seeing clients for the first time ever when the pandemic started. So I don't have a previous lens of what it was before. Like I've always had an influx of clients, and for an intern, that wasn't really heard of to have as many clients as I ended up having. But I got them off the bat because it was just so many people looking for help at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and remember the kids were out of school at that time. Or they were virtual. So now we're getting hit with all kinds of evaluations. You've got kids that were isolated from other kids for months. So if you're in like the 4 to 8 year old range, and this is your time to like learn how to build those social skills, you were out of school for a year, maybe 2, and you didn't have that chance. So going back into the school environment, you have a lot of kids right now that are struggling with getting along with their peers, because they just don't know, they didn't have that opportunity to build those social skills. And then a lot of academic issues on top of ADHD, because there's learning problems in school and all of that. So yeah, there's been an influx of evaluations. I haven't done so much therapy since I started my new job, but evaluations, absolutely, they're off the chain. There's a wait list for everything, everywhere.
Yep.
We were definitely waitlisted. I saw, because I work with adults, so I saw a lot of clients coming in with anxiety, depression, for being isolated from everybody, and seeing so much death at once because a lot of people were dying. And another thing I saw that was very not interesting, I actually wasn't surprised, but because a lot of couples, because I work with couples, a lot of couples had never both had to work from home and spend that much time together. So they started to break down because it's like, I want you away from me. Like, we don't spend this much time together. And you saw that breakdown. So it was a divorce rates went up. A lot of couples started coming to therapy for just issues that they had swept under the rug, but now they couldn't anymore because they were in each other's faces 24/7. So it was very interesting with the couple dynamic, what the pandemic did.
Suicide rates went up.
Yep.
Yeah. I was scared during the pandemic because I know that people are frustrated. People don't know how to emotionally regulate. And so they're in a house with these kids all by themselves. And, you know, a lot of times people get happy when kids go to school because you get that break. So now you're not working. Your kids are at home. You don't get that break. Some people were happy, but imagine the people that were not happy. And then like telehealth went up. So therapy went up altogether. And that's when we found out, oh, we don't have to be sitting in somebody's office. We can do telehealth. So mental health actually should be getting better.
Yeah. We just need more providers.
It exposed
to keep up.
Our system.
More providers, true, but also, side note, they need to make our license reciprocity easier. I should not have license in several different states to see people in other states. That to me is a shame and ridiculous.
I thought Michelle Obama worked on that.
She did, but I think it was only for military for some reason. I think so.
Yeah, we have a comment here too. The system has made it impossible to handle certain situations with your children. You can't discipline them without CPS getting involved. So the parents have to walk on eggshells with discipline. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
I have a different perspective on that now that I'm working with children specifically, and I am being trauma trained in just certain modalities that we have. And so discipline, I believe, is a subjective depending on who we're talking to. So, and depending on culturally how certain cultures, what they think of discipline as. So if your discipline is, you know, spanking, if your discipline is, no, we go with a different approach, obviously that depends. I think that walking on eggshells is a double-edged sword, like with CPS for our people, because our people, if we even step outside the, you know, this box, they're getting called. But also on the other side, we have to respect what those cultural nuances look like when it comes to discipline. So I'm starting to reimagine what discipline looks like for different cultures and how do we keep kids safe, not just physically safe, but emotionally safe. So while you may say, you know, I walk on eggshells with discipline, well, what does discipline look like to you? How do you redirect your child? How do you engage with your child when they've done something wrong? How do you talk about it? And is it developmentally appropriate? What if a spanking is developmentally appropriate at the time? Or if you have a teenager, what if just taking their privileges away is appropriate? So I think it just depends on age, and I think it depends on culture.
Yeah.
I wish I could put like the clap hands emoji or something up on the screen and won't let me do it. That was dope, Keish.
I partway agree with you, because sometimes kids go to school and, you know, they're like, oh, well, this happened to me last night, or that happened to me last night, or a spanking did happen to me last night. And now you got to have CPS called on you because you spanked your child. Now, if you have, you know, you're leaving marks, because in Louisiana, spankings are legal. They're actually still paddling some of these kids in these schools.
School, yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, yeah, they are.
They are.
Spankings are legal. So if you're if you're sending your
sorry,
kid,
go
but
ahead.
I mean there has to be consent. But if you're sending your kids to school and they're going to school with marks on them because you actually physically hurt them, then that's one thing. I'm guilty of a light spank here and there because guess what? It's behavior modification at the end of the day. It works. Immediately it works. The rest of it is arguably but as far as like being like, you can't do this to your kid, you can't do that to your kid. I don't agree with that because even when I was in England, people who would spank their kids, they was getting the cops and stuff called on them, and they were not hurting the kids. It's subjective. It depends on who you are, how you discipline, and it's subjective. Perfect word.
I think it also depends on your child. I think a lot of parents, especially when you have multiple children, you are not truly getting to know each child's personality because I'm sorry, spanking won't work for every child.
Nope.
My youngest, if I continue, like I consciously try not to spank any of my kids, but I have. But my youngest son, I learned really quick that he gets really angry when he gets spanked. And I'm like, do I want to foster that level of anger in him and rage by continuing to put my hands on him just because he's not listening? It has to be another way for this to work for him. Because it's not going to work for him, and I'm not going to make him an angry child like that. So I had to change it up. You have to learn kids. Every kid is not going to respond to spanking. They're just not.
And you have to learn yourself.
And yourself.
Should you be spanking when you're angry? How do you talk to that child? Yeah, how do you talk to that child about what's happening to them? How do you talk to that child about why they're getting a spanking? I don't demonize for spanking because I done spanked and my kids are very emotionally healthy and they're gonna kill the game forever.
And we talked about that, Suge, about what do we say, spanking along with guidance.
Yes.
You don't just beat your kid into the ground. Like that's not effective. But we did speak again. I just prefer not to spank because I think about how I react versus other people like Suge who may prefer to do that, but with guidance. Hey, this is why, and this is where we can change things up for next time, so this doesn't happen. Like guidance, like your kid is still a human being.
Yeah,
your kid still remembers you doing that. And if you are fostering some type of anger and cannot emotionally regulate, then you need to check yourself. You need to figure out why and what is it about this behavior that's taking me to the point where I'm so triggered. Now I have to harm my child. So those are things that you have to keep in mind when it comes to discipline and how subjective it can be.
I've heard of people being like, I punched him in the chest because he did wrong, so I punched him in the chest. And I'm like, my God, you gonna punch somebody in their heart for
what?
I've heard that. Now, when you saying stuff like that, then I'm like, okay, now that's too much. But like, I'll give an example. My baby is 3 now. Mercy don't get no spanks, but if like
leave my baby alone.
Like I'll leave her alone. Like Tamia, I'll give a perfect example. Tamia has got spankings when she was 5. Okay, I'm gonna give you 5 pats to your butt. That's my spanking. Now, if you're throwing cars and beating the mess out of somebody, then there's a difference. And I think that's where people get hung up at is like, what are you doing? Oh my God, you're doing this, you're doing that. But it depends on who you are, who your child is, and how you discipline. And as long as you're not coming at them when you're angry, you're hurting somebody, you're sending somebody to school and they got belt marks on them, and you're physically harming somebody, then hey, discipline.
I heard it. Oh, go ahead, Auntie Amber. No, go ahead.
Now, I was going to say also what we're talking about here, it kind of goes back to that pandemic question too, because you've got kids who had to spend a lot of time at home with their parents. Their parents are not used to it. Their parents are used to disciplining them a certain way. And so just think about what was happening in those homes with the parents who do actually hurt their children or discipline them physically to hurt them, to get them to straighten up and control them. And then now they have to go back into the school environment. There's anxiety right there immediately. When you make a mistake or when you think that you're doing something wrong, you think your teacher might hit you or somebody else is going to hit you. That's the anxiety right there. So things like that, it's just the whole pandemic was just sad.
Right. And they have a different, and I like what you said that, Amber, they go back to school, have anxiety because children tend to foster a different perception of safety and security. And once they're hit, like abused drastically. So they they don't understand who can protect them and who can't. If the person that's in the home with them is beating the shit out of them, they don't know how to identify where their safe space is at. That's why it's important to look at, okay, if I'm losing my cool and beating my kid, where does my kid find safety? And now your kid is running to somebody who don't got the best intentions for them, providing them this safe space, and now all of a sudden they with somebody who doesn't even have their best interest, and who knows what happened. So that's why it's always important to look at how you are as a parent and what you're doing, so that way your child can come to you as a safety net, not use somebody else.
I'm sorry.
It's cool. I actually looked up some research one time to find out how many women were spanked as young girls, specifically by their fathers who ended up in abusive relationships. There's some research that has been done in that area, because they learned early on, okay, a man is allowed to hit me. And I know people feel like that's a stretch, but they've done research on that. But another thing I want to say, and then I can wrap it up. I saw something that was interesting about the rule of thumb for spanking for in a conscious parenting group. And they basically asked, how old is the child? Is the child young enough or old enough to understand what you are saying? And if they're not, then you shouldn't be hitting them, because they're too young to understand. And are they old enough to understand if you explain it? If they are old enough, explain it. You shouldn't be spanking them if you can explain it and talk to them. So I kind of try to go off of that, like, okay, you're too young to understand what the problem even is, so forget it.
Yeah, but that eliminates the spanking, and some parents discipline like that. So some parents, you have to meet where they are. That's why I don't demonize for it, because if you're a spanker, okay, let me teach you how not to beat your kid. Let me teach you how to discipline. Let me teach you that a spanking should probably be your last resort. What have you went through first? What methods have you gone through first? We do therapy dojo in my house where, you know what, dang it, you're going to lose a point. And the kids think like, oh my God, I lost the point. Like they go crazy over losing their points. They lose points in church. They lose points at home because they're always doing something, and they get points. And so like I give points like, did you get up and brush your teeth on time? Yes. Positive reinforcement. But after a while, sometimes you get to the point where you're like, no, this is unacceptable. And if you don't discipline your child, somebody else is going to have to discipline them later on. And talking, like you said, each child is different. Some kids ain't going to understand that. Do you spank teenagers? No, because by then you about fighting somebody your age. But a little kid who knows, like a small child where you might have to get with them sometimes. If that's the way that you parent, that's the way that you parent. So I meet people where they are, and I just teach them how to be good where they are.
I think it's funny that I threaten spankings. Like, I'll be like, all right, now, if you don't get this done in 5 seconds, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to whoop you. And I never get to that point, because by the time I get to 3 or 2, they run to go do whatever it is. So I don't get to that point. Like, I don't actually do it. I'm not saying that people that do spank their kids are doing anything wrong or whatever, but like I start with my countdown first. Like, I've given you a warning. Now I'm counting down. And then if I get to 1, I'm going to spank you. Thankfully, I haven't gotten to 1. I don't know if I would actually spank them if I get to 1 or not. I feel like I should follow through with my word.
I do something totally different. I validate my nephew. I don't have children, as y'all know, but I do have a nephew. He's 4. So if he acts up in any way, I will validate him being frustrated. Okay, I know you're frustrated, buddy. Okay. And then I'll give him an alternative. I said, okay, we're not doing this, but you can do this though. Which one would you like to do? He'll pout for a second. He might scream and holler. And then I'm like, okay, use your words. He'll get up. He's like, okay, I want to do this. Okay, let's do that. And that's how it goes. Like, I don't even. Now, my sister, totally opposite. She freaks out, screams, holler, fall out with him. I mean, you wasting your time. Like, you wasting your time.
But that's the perfect explanation, because your sister, where you are, you're going to be mostly stable. And part of it is because she has to deal with them all the time. Yep, and so it is frustrating. Yep. But if you see her and, like you say, she's freaking out and her hair is on fire, those are the parents who want to spank. And you're like, okay, spank away. But let me show you how. And then that's how you stop a parent from emotionally damaging their child, but still feeling like they're disciplining them in the way that they can. At least that's what I do with my clients.
Interestingly enough, Elijah, my husband, just an example, we went to church one Sunday and Asa was having an entire fit, like, I mean, crying, screaming. And I was like, okay, I can't do this. I was like, I cannot do this. He literally said he won't go into church. So I went in with the other 3 kids. He literally sat in that car with that boy for 20 minutes. He never put his hands on him. He sat and let him have a tantrum for that long until he calmed down. And they
How
came.
old was it? Well, how old was your child at the time?
This was this year.
How old is he?
7.
He's 7. Okay.
Was he 6 at the time? Had he turned 7 yet? I can't remember. He might have been right about to turn 7, but he just let him have that tantrum. And me, I'm thinking he's 7. Elijah gonna pop him like he gonna pop. He never touched him. He walked in church. I said, "Did you spank him?" He's like, "Nope. I just sat there until he stopped." He wasn't gonna go in. I was gonna let him have it.
Sometimes kids have emotional outbursts too. Like, we have the same thing going on. The difference is that our brains is a little bit more developed, so we know how to compartmentalize when we want to have tantrums. Like, we know when we want to have it, but we can't sit up here as adults.
Do we though?
Not all. I was gonna say.
Do we?
Wait, what?
Do we though? Do we know how to compartmentalize and regulate our emotions? Because I swear sometimes I just adult tantrum all the way.
Okay, you got a point. Sometimes we do need to be real back in. There are moments where we flip the hell out, but I'm saying, like, if we were to look at developmentally, we're supposed to be in a better place than a 6-year-old. So yes, a 6-year-old, I'm like, it's pretty much automatic for me that a kid would flip out at 6. Yeah, we know that. Okay, they're gonna flip out.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't bother me these days. I'm just like, he's a kid. He'll flip out.
That's making me think of like expectations as a parent for your child's developmental level. Because don't kill me, Marcus, but I'm gonna talk about my husband a little bit here. Because what
he gonna get right on here and start checking
right? What happens is, like, our kids can be. I have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. Okay, 3-year-old. That means he gonna cry every now and then, right? They can have an absolute wonderful day, no crying all day long. And the first time that they cry, like in the evening or when he gets tired before a nap, it's like, oh my God, he ain't listening. He's a crybaby. Da, da, da. And I'm just like, expectations. Like, a 3-year-old is going to cry every now and then, and they are going to cry. Like, they're going to cry and they're going to be inconsolable for a little bit. So, like, managing your expectations as a parent is important. You cannot expect your 6-year-old to be a calm, relaxed kid all day, every day.
Yes.
And flip out when they flip out.
Right.
Like, it's going to happen. So just expect it.
Yes. I always tell Elijah, developmental stages. These kids' prefrontal lobe is not fully developed, because he'll be like, they old enough to understand. And I'm like, are they though? They're really not. They probably don't understand as easily as you think they do. And yes, you have to repeat with children, because that's something that even get on my nerves. Like, I just told you this. I tell you this every morning. I tell you this every day. You literally have to repeat with kids. They don't grasp it like you think. So you have to lower your expectations. Yes, they're human, but they're not adults. They are still.
Some kids aren't as verbose. Now, don't get me wrong. There may be some kids who are able to express how they feel, but some kids may not even know how to find the words to express how they feel. Like, a 6-year-old may not say, "Hey, mom, I'm frustrated and I don't want to go inside the church," or "I'm scared," or "I have anxiety." Those may not be words that they're going to say. They may say it in their behavior. "I'm going to cry. I'm going to fall out. I'm going to have an attitude. I'm not going to say anything." Like, that's how kids typically communicate with adults, because they're just not as verbose.
Well, look, y'all, my mama made a comment. It's hard as a grandparent to not jump in and discipline the grandkids old school, because now they have to take it the new parenting styles. And me and my mom, like, we are doing so much better now. But though that overstepping the boundaries and the discipline, the new parenting style, especially my dad too. And I'm like, look, I'm not just going to go straight to spanking them when they're not listening. It is hard for them. It's hard. So for the grandparents out there that are trying, we know it's hard.
Yeah.
But you got this. You got this. New parenting styles.
You know what I like to tell some parents, because this has come up a lot recently with a couple of clients, like adults creating boundaries with their parents, adult children, and that being a struggle. Like, my parents really don't understand my boundaries, but I'm an adult now. I've been, especially when it comes to grandparents and the kids and how that differs, I often say, ask your parent, would you have wanted anybody to tell you how to raise your child? Would you help you is one thing, support you is one thing, but literally tell you how you should be raising your child? You probably didn't want anybody to tell you that. So let these parents raise their children. You are a support. You are not their other parent.
Venetia came up with a comment just now. I was just about to say something about this comment. So my mama had to get with my daughter old school style the other day, and I just let her. I'm about to go ahead and go in on that one because Miss Missy, I'm here with you, okay? If I'm watching these kids and they acting up, and it looked to me like you on discipline, because otherwise I wouldn't have to tell them something 900 times. And I'm a big support of yours. I'm not telling you how to raise them. I'm helping you raise them. I got some say. So if my mom likes to come in and she likes to keep the kids sometimes for me to go out of town or for me to go do whatever, and she likes to be a big help. I know some of my other friends' mothers are in the house with them. If I'm actually helping you and I'm actually pouring into your kid, discipline is going to be my style too. Now, that's how much do you trust your mother? I know for a fact if my mother is spanking my kids, she's not spanking them to kill them. I know that if she's done that, she's gotten to the point to where she's like, no, this is not okay. And I think we do our kids a disservice when we get in there and say, can't nobody say nothing to you, can't nobody do this to you, can't nobody do that to you. Because guess what? That's not life. That's me.
Well, let me clarify, and I'm sorry, my kid's running around upstairs. Y'all probably
get him, Missy.
As always. Well, let me clarify. My mom watches my kids, and when she watches my kids, I don't call her and be like, "Oh, did you spank so and so today? You're not allowed to spank them when they at your house." Like, I don't do all that. It became a problem when I had to go and live with them for a while my husband was out in Hawaii. And so this is where we were kind of clashing because we were in the same house, but I'm the parent. So when I say something, my mom comes in and she's like, oh, you better do this or I'm going to do this. And I'm like, let me discipline. Let me do it the way that I do it.
Yes.
And then if that don't work, then you do your thing. But like, I have a more patient, gentle parenting style. So like, just watch me work, try it out. If you don't like it, that's cool. But that was where the problem was coming in. When they go stay with her, I'm not micromanaging helicopter mom. You do what you got to do because ultimately you're watching them, you're supervising them. So I just had to clarify on that because I agree with you, Shug, with that part.
I agree. If I'm there, let me be the parent. But my kids spent a summer with Elijah's mom one summer, and they went and spent a summer with my mom one summer without us there. I ain't got nothing to say because I'm not there. I know you're not gonna hurt these kids. You love them to death, so go ahead and do what you got to do. But oddly enough, my mother has actually never whooped these kids, and I'm like, you used to beat me, but she's never whooped these kids. But also, her thing is, I don't see them enough, and I don't want the times I spend with them to be that. So her thing is, I want to foster that love and that care and that grandma feeling with them where they done. I'm like, well, Granny used to beat me too, but nonetheless, she has never had to spank them. But they also, I think they really know not to try her because of stories they've heard from me. So maybe that's it. They won't even try her.
I think there's a balance. There's a balance that just has to be considered. Okay, mom, parents this way, grandparents this way, but what's the end goal here? The end goal should make sure that your kid still feels safe and secure with you. That should be the end goal. And ensuring that if anything went down, that he or she can run back to their mama or their grandmama or grandparents and know that y'all got their back and y'all have the best interest for them. So I'm all for balance. So if your grandparents, discipline one way and you discipline another way, as long as they're balanced and y'all and that kid knows that y'all both love them, is what it is.
And we gotta just real quick, we got a comment from Venetia because she's right. She put, y'all know grandparents are soft compared to how they were as parents. Absolutely.
And
my parents over here talking a big game. They want an old school. They ain't gonna old school nothing with my kids. Like, stop playing. Y'all already know. My
daddy, Amber calling you out, girl.
My daddy is the biggest softest. The biggest.
My auntie tear that up.
My parents same way. Like my dad, he took these kids and got them so much junk from the store, and I'm like, but wait a minute, sir. Wait a minute. You told me they couldn't have all that junk and all that candy and all that. He's like, but I took him to the store and I don't see him that much. What? I don't care.
My auntie said she'd tear that ass up. She said she's gonna tear that ass up, and I approve that message.
Yo, Auntie
Oh my
Amber, I got
God.
before you pop up the next one, I just had to acknowledge because I kind of made him, I think I made Elijah feel like he doesn't support me here a lot because he don't be popping up. He commented earlier, so I was, hey, husband.
Oh, did I miss his comment? Where was it?
Not a shameless plug.
It was the shameless plug that my husband is
There we go.
supporting tonight. That was about the men in depression when we were doing. He was early. I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Oh, I didn't know what he was talking about.
I'm on Elijah's side with this. That's why I didn't say nothing about it, because they do have the means now. So you need to start addressing some of the things that's going on. If you can sit on a podcast and talk about how women ain't shit and women ain't did this and did that, and you can go to therapy. You can go create men's groups. There's plenty of resources out there for y'all to do so. And even if there aren't resources, start a new one. Start one. Y'all can do it. Y'all can do it.
Like that. Like
we
that.
believe in you.
We got you.
I believe in you.
We got you
All
back.
right, this is the other husband right here.
All right.
Hey,
Abraham Walker. Go ahead, Auntie Shug.
We be
Go
waiting
ahead.
for you.
Do the honors. Do the honors.
Does your fields have specialties like the coaching does? For example, I can find a coach that specializes in different finances and or fitness. They can coach me on how to meet my goals.
Yes. There are career counselors. There are finance counselors. Yes, we have those.
School counselors.
Yep.
There's different type of
Child
psychology.
and adolescent psychologists.
Yep.
Art
There's
therapy.
forensic psychologists.
Music therapy. We have a lot of specialties.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you even have within those specialties, you may find a child and adolescent psychologist who specializes with ADHD or autism or something specific like that.
Yep.
All right. He also had another question, so we're just going to slide this one right in there too. How do you handle licensing when you have to move to different states? Do you lose your credentials?
Abraham is asking this question because he's trying to move me.
Okay.
Well, you're a military spouse, so like that gives you some oomph that
it's a loophole, but it's very hard to work with. So basically, no, you don't lose your credentials. What happens is if Shug is licensed in Louisiana and y'all leave Louisiana and she's only licensed there, then she can only see Louisiana clients because it doesn't matter where the therapist is. It matters where the client resides. So she can only then see Louisiana clients on telehealth. Yes, she can still work, but she can't see anybody in the new state unless she gets licensed in that state.
Right. But now the APA has created the SIPAC, which they are trying to have a lot of states join this little thing that they're doing to make sure that there's cross licensure or cross
reciprocity.
Yeah, there we go.
Reciprocity.
With several different states. So they're working on it, but there's still some things that they are putting some like requirements on there that we still have to meet. But hopefully that will be at least revised at some point, so that way more states and more psychologists can apply to that.
And the ACA has a similar one. The American Counselor Association, they have a similar one for counselors. So yes, they are trying.
So either way it go, I'm good because I do both.
She good, Abe. She gonna have clients whether y'all move or not. She good.
Right, because you still getting your LPC, right, Shug?
Yeah, I'll be done with my LPC in June. Like I'm almost done with the hours. I have to finish. Actually, once I'm done with the hours, I'm good because I took the test a long time ago and I'm just waiting for licensure. So Abraham, to answer your question, you do have another one. Are you required to have insurance if you are operating under someone else's license or practice? Yes.
Yes.
You are required to have insurance. So as an example, I have my own malpractice insurance, and then my boss has his own insurance, and then like I'm probably up under his too, just because you got to make sure I ain't messing nobody up.
That's different by state though, because in Colorado, if you are a licensed professional counselor candidate, which is similar to an associate in some states or whatever, you're not fully licensed. You are under your supervisor's insurance. When I worked at the group practice in Colorado, I did not have to have my own insurance. I was under hers. But when I started my own private practice, because it's a private practice, even though I have the supervisor, now I have to have my own insurance. I have to.
Well, I work in a private, well, it's a group practice, but it's one owner. And she gave me the option. She said that, you can get it under me and pay it out of your paycheck, or you can pay it all at once and get your own, and it's paid for the year. So of course I just went with the all at once just to get that out the way. So it was an option.
She covered me and didn't deduct it. So I was like, cool.
Wait. I got a question. Who gonna cancel Venetia's promo?
Yeah.
Wait. You know what? Let me make something loud.
I already put her mama on y'all.
She said she on that ass. Who is gonna be?
Because
I was blown out over this.
This is still a common question. I don't care how many times I've said it to people. I know they don't seem to get it. Realize that we cannot work with anybody we are friends with, family. We can't. It is a dual relationship, and we ethically cannot do it.
For therapy.
For therapy, right?
Therapy.
We can't, as therapists, we can't see people that we know. Now, there's a caveat to that. Like if you live in a small, like me and Shug from Niagara Falls, if we worked in Niagara Falls, it's a strong chance we might work with somebody we know. So as long as we can maintain that this dual relationship will not have an impact, you might have to, depending on where you live, if you work where you live. But for the most part, you're not supposed to counsel anybody that you know at all. She says she don't know.
Now she don't know three of us.
Don't know three of us.
I've already turned her down, and I've already told her, Miss Carla. She said, "You don't know me." I'm like, "Your daughter is my bestest friend." I said, "You're gonna have to ask another one of the aunties. You gotta ask one of them."
Look. We got Elijah right here. Hey, you counsel your husband? You're not allowed to do that.
I don't do that. No, lying.
He put Elijah on blast.
I'm lying. Not him trying to get my license snatched. Are you sure, sir? You want me to be broke?
I just want to make a comment about that, though, just real quick. So yes, for therapy, absolutely, there's an ethical issue there. For psychological evaluations, because they're more data-based, there's not so much of a restriction on that, on testing people that that are in the community or whatnot, because you don't have to go into all the background and all that stuff like you do in therapy. Right. But it's also at the clinician's discretion. Let me add that. All right, next question.
Have you all ever had to deal with an extremely difficult client and or one who was a danger to you and themselves? Have any ethical issues ever arose?
Difficult client, yes.
Yeah, we've all had to deal with some difficult clients and children.
Danger to themselves. I have had clients with severe suicidal ideation and suicide attempts who've had to go on holds, inpatient holds. But danger to me, no, not to me. I haven't done any homicidal ideation or any client that I felt would be a danger to me.
I deal with some pretty difficult. So let me just put out a disclaimer. The reason why I deal with a lot of difficult clients is because I'm always one that's like, oh, if they got anxiety and depression, pass them on to her. Give me the other ones. And so they've started doing that. Because I'm like, I can't be bored throughout the day. So they started doing that, and I started getting some pretty I started getting some doozies. But sometimes when you do have to deal with difficult clients and ethical issues arise, let me just go ahead and tell y'all, Christina is actually in school for marriage and family therapy. And so
Christina.
A lot of these questions, she wants answered. So when I do have those difficult clients, you have a supervisor, especially when you're in training. You'll have a supervisor that'll help you out with ethical issues. You're encouraged to look up ethical issues state by state, because even though you might have the APA or the ACA code of ethics, each state has a different code of ethics, and your state takes precedence over the code of ethics that you learn in school. And so with that, you just got to kind of look up what your state says about the problem, and you got to proceed from there with caution and some discretion. And, I mean, you'll have clinical judgment.
Yeah. And I learned really early on when I took the ethics class in school and through my supervisor, ethics are very gray. Yes, we all have the ethical guidelines, but they purposely leave them gray because they want you to make an informed decision. There's a whole decision-making process when it comes to ethical questions. And one thing that came up for me was with the client with a suicide attempt. My supervisor at the time, I was like, my client called, it was a crisis situation. They're going to put her on a 72-hour hold. What should I do? She said, once she goes on that hold, she is no longer your concern. But if you choose to stay in contact, that is up to you. You make that decision. It does not cross ethics. You make that decision. I made that decision because I would have probably done it for certain clients anyway, but I felt like she already struggled with coming to therapy. This was her first time ever doing it. Black woman, she was very scared. And I was like, she needs to know that somebody cares about her, because she already had this mindset that therapists only care about money. That's it. They don't really care. So I was on her call list while she was on that 72-hour hold. I spoke to the therapist that she worked with there. And it was all good. She signed ROIs. It was all good. And she came out of that. And I felt like I made the right decision because she felt cared for in that moment. And there is a heart element to this field that a lot of people ignore.
Yeah. On the flip side, I have been in a dangerous situation where I was an emergency mental health worker. And so I worked overnight, and there were people who had psychosis. And so when they are unmedicated with psychosis, well, episodes tend to happen. And so there were moments where I was chased around the facility by a patient. I was there by myself. And so I did have to contact the police because I had another client in there with me, and that client was scared because of how this person was acting. So, at the time, there were other people in the lobby who were waiting on this patient that I was dealing with, and they were literally thinking of a plan to break the window because they could see me running around. It was
I'm sorry. They thought of you running around being chased around there. I could not contain myself.
I was being chased. And they were aggressive too. They were aggressive. They picked up things and it was not good.
Yo, I promise you, my first thought went immediately to me as a regular human being, because I tell people all the time, therapists are human. And in my mind, I'm like, chasing me, I would have snapped in the hood mentality real quick and forgot I was a therapist. Oh, you want a box? Because we can.
But that's you're right. But as a clinician, thinking this person is not in their right mind, they're having a psychosis episode. So I had to act professional as far as I had somebody on the phone with me. I got the other client out safe, and she was like, she was grabbing up her stuff. So she was like, okay, I gotta go. You should have seen this. You should have seen them. So anyway, long story short, they ended up, contacting the police, and we had to, put this person in a more secure facility, which we knew that person shouldn't have been with me in the first place, but that's neither here nor there. But yes, things like that has happened when someone can be a danger to, the clinician. So it has happened, but we have safety precautions and policies and procedures in place to address that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. First man Abe over here asking a million questions. No, we're about to get off this live. Let's take our pick. He got a question about social workers. He has a question about violence in the workplace, and then a question about handling a patient that doesn't respond well to medication. Which one y'all want to pick?
Well, the social worker one is actually, I think, pretty simple. So we can
go for it.
I've heard social workers can go to jail if they fail to perform certain duties and a child gets hurt. How do you ensure you prevent a child from getting hurt if you aren't sure if it's a safe environment?
That's a Keisha question. You the social worker.
It is.
Typically, so first and foremost, you can go to jail if there are certain laws that have been broken. So of course, if that person doesn't follow and it's an extreme case, yes, they can prosecute. But typically they teach social workers to document, which means that if you don't document, it didn't happen. Mm-hmm. So we are taught ethically that we have to document all the things that we've done, especially to ensure the safety of a child. Ensuring seems more of a concrete term. So what we do is we tend to typically when you make a report, we make a report, or not we, but a report can come in based off of just a suspicion of abuse. So even if there is no concrete evidence, if there is a report that comes in, we have reporters or have social workers who take the call, and then we go through the call to see if we have enough evidence to investigate. If there's enough evidence to investigate, that's when we proceed forward. And that's how it goes. And typically, if it's enough to remove the child from the home, we then go to a judge where we can get a court order or some sort of order to be able to remove these kids and put the kids in custody, state custody. That means that they will go to foster homes. And obviously these foster homes have been, I'm going to say this based off of just me being a good social worker, we're going to assume that they've been vetted and that these are good foster parents and have children placed with them throughout the year, or just a good foster parenting home. So we tend to try to ensure the safety as best as we can. Have there been children that has fell through the cracks? Absolutely. So I won't even try to even cover that. Does that system need to be revamped? Absolutely. And actually, foster kids have a higher rate of violence, actually, when it comes to safety. So it's a vulnerable group, but I think the system still needs work. But yes, social workers are held accountable just like any other civilian if the case is extreme and that there is no documentation.
Yeah.
So.
Right, nice.
Wait,
Abe said, so you CPS?
I used to be.
No.
That's why I said
Um,
that question was for her.
Listen.
But he also asked, have you had to intervene or do a group counseling session for a workplace that had violence occur? And I wanted to answer that. I've never had to do a session for a workplace violence that has occurred, but working with military members, I think we get we make sure that we're not complacent, right? So we always say complacency kills. There's always a complacency kills kind of thing that goes on. I think I would love to actually have the chance to do that, have the chance to work with people who have PTSD or had workplace violence, because there's a lot of military bases that have had workplace violence, but it's, I think, few and far in between where people actually use these big group counseling sessions for workplaces. And I think that there need to be more of that.
It do, because I broke up a fight last year between the maintenance man and a worker. So why is it me?
It's always you, Keish. Always you.
Abe, other question makes sense now. Have you considered self-defense classes?
You actually take self-defense classes. When I was overnight, that dude that was the client who was chasing me around, we have to take self-defense classes. And there were more than one worker that was beat up. Like, there was an actual worker that got beat up by a client, and he was put in the hospital. So yes, we do have self-defense classes, but when you're in the moment, it's flight, fight, or freeze. So, and I was flight. A lot of it.
She was flight.
She's so stupid.
She's often justified in the fight response. Then you learn the self-defense, put them in a hole, do something.
Yeah, but that's not the self-defense that they teach you, though. That's not what they teach you. They don't teach you to hold. They don't teach you to do any of that. They teach you more like the defense, like arms up, like stuff like that. No, we're not gonna do that. I'm just gonna head flight, because I already know all them self-defense classes gonna go right out the door.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm gonna go ahead and bounce.
I'm just gonna go ahead and run.
Go ahead and run.
Yeah, because they teach you like you're not supposed to grab or hold people, because you could get in trouble later on for grabbing.
Yeah, there might be some legal ramifications along with that.
But when it actually happens, how do you know? Like, if I don't run, I'm grabbing somebody, I'm pushing something, like I'm doing something.
There is more. I'm telling y'all, there were two other workers that got either beat up or pulled to the ground because they didn't put their defenses up. And I wasn't gonna do neither one. I don't even think my wig was even glued on. So. Have me around there running around, ball.
Shut up. She's like, you won't snatch this lace.
And will not. And will not.
Oh my God.
Next question.
Well, Benicia does want us to answer Abe's last question, so we'll go ahead and do that.
Shut up, shit.
Is your wig glued on right now, though?
No, it's not glued on.
Why don't you glue them on? We'll
What's a
talk
little
about
bit?
that later. I need to know. I need to
You
be
know
told.
I sew 'em on. First of all, I sew them on because glue is never sturdy. You sew them on, says sew them on.
You can use Gorilla Glue.
No,
Stop.
girl. Ball, flat ball. I'm be actually slap ball.
I ain't slap ball no more. My sides grew in.
If I use that gorilla glue, I will be.
So what was his question? She wanted.
Hold on, we got a comment for about the violence. So Elijah, go ahead and do the honor, sweet pea.
Oh, so that's why I believe anyone in a supervisory position should have the skills and tools to deal with those type of situations until a licensed counselor can be brought in.
I agree, Elijah. I agree 100% because what she's not standing here doing is getting the hell beat out of her by a patient. So you have to be careful with how you handle yourself in those situations. But self-defense, I mean, it's not violent. It's just smart to defend yourself.
Absolutely.
Somebody got to go down, and why it got to be you?
I'm not gonna be the one in the hospital. We're gonna both be there.
Is he talking about my situation?
Yeah.
Elaborate,
right.
sir.
Yeah, we.
I think that's what he was talking about.
Oh, if he is, then I will clarify that we, as workers, we did tell them as licensed. We're all licensed professionals, and as the licensed professionals, we did notify the supervisor. We even let the hospital know, like, we cannot have these individuals over here because we do not have the capacity nor the security for someone who may have an episode. And what are we going to do in this tight area that we're in? That's why looking at the system is why we need to change it, because there are moments where we voiced our concerns, but they were not taken seriously. And then we had situations like that.
Yeah.
You know what, Elijah?
And he did say,
go ahead. No, I was about to say, the good, he said in general, but the good point is that that one point is that Keisha's making is that they should probably, if you're gonna be working overnight or you're gonna be with patients that are more physically violent, there should be some kind of security and stuff there. There should be a team instead of just being kind of left by yourself, because you can't de-escalate somebody who's already at a high point when they're already calmed up. It's hard to calm somebody down.
Yeah. If you have to physically restrain or de-escalate, that involves somebody who's capable of doing that. And that should not be the professional therapist or counselor in that case.
Which is why I'm not there anymore, y'all.
Why you was running.
No, that's why I'm not there anymore.
Yeah. All right, next question. How do prescribers handle a patient that doesn't respond well to medication? How do prescribers handle a patient that doesn't respond well to medication? For example, some medications have side effects.
This your last question, Abe.
Yeah, and this is probably better for Auntie Shug because she's you're doing the pharmacological.
I do.
Type of
So I'm not a prescriber. Let me go ahead and put that that disclaimer out there. But I do work up under a prescriber. My supervisor is both a prescriber and a behavioralist. So I always get told off about talking about whoopings, but and medication. So when a patient has physical side effects or side effects to their medication, the first thing you do is try to figure out, is the side effects medication related, or are the side effects just because the patient would have had side effects? Like, you get some people who say, ever since you started me on this medication, I've been throwing up. And then, you look at the side effects and you're like, well, this medication is not usually known to cause that, but let's I kind of like look at it a little bit longer and see, like, maybe you're adjusting to your medication. And if not, you can always change medication. We also have this system to where you can, like, it's a spit test. I can't remember what it's called right about now, but where you can actually have the client, spit in the cup, and then you send it off, and then you get all these things back. Pharmacogenomic testing, where they can test how what medication.
That sounded sexy. Say it again. Oh, okay.
Abe gonna be turned on with that word.
Oh God, not pharmacogenomic testing.
He did not sound like a dude. You
Stop it. Y'all play too much.
But with that kind of testing, you can figure out what medications might work with your genetic code. And that's actually really effective. We've had people who know I can't take Wellbutrin, I can't take Adderall, I can't take certain medications, and it's easier to treat them because you know what they can take and you know what's going to work best for them. And some people, they just get smooth sailing as soon as you do that testing, figure out what medication works for them, and handle whatever they have going on.
Cool. Hey, didn't you stop talking? Now he's still putting questions in the box.
It's actually a good question, so we might answer that last one, and that's gonna be the last one, Abe, because Christina says you're taking up all the question space. Okay.
Hey, you are number one fan, yo. We love it. Number one supporter.
Before we move to that, I do want to make a comment about the question about clients that are not responding to medication. I just want to throw in there that medication alone is not the best recommended treatment, the most effective treatment for mental health issues. So if you are not responding well to medication, just make sure you're also in therapy too. So you're doing that work with your thoughts, with your feelings, and all of that, just in case you can't find a medication that's going to work well for you.
And I'm gonna double down on that for her too. I want to go ahead and put my stamp on that for you too. When you are, and I'll give a good example, when you are seeing a client and the medication might not be working well for them. For example, if ADHD medication doesn't work for you, it's probably because you don't have ADHD. So,
yep. Ooh.
Where's the clap?
It won't let me do it. I'm gonna figure it out next time.
No, but that's one thing. And then sometimes ADHD doubles as anxiety. I always tell my clients that ADHD and anxiety are first cousins. So if you're saying, this is not happening, I still can't focus, then we're like, well, what else could it be? That's always my thing. Well, what else could it be? If you have anxiety and you still can't focus, if you think you have ADHD and you're not responding to medication, you still can't focus, it could be anxiety doubling as ADHD. And so that's why you're always advised to have counseling and medication if you're going to use pharmacology, because medication is not always the answer. Medication can sometimes be a band-aid to a bigger problem.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Tell them.
All right. I feel like this one's going to be a good one for Auntie Keys because she's all about setting the boundaries. But how do you handle a client that struggles to say no? And then he also says, for example, they take on way more than they can handle and they become overwhelmed.
Well, typically I try to go back and look at, I typically ask them the question, okay, you tried it this way, and how's that working for you?
Boom.
Yeah.
That helps them do a little bit of self-awareness into, okay, I've been doing it for this long and I'm not receiving back or receiving what I want out of the situation, but the other person is. So when do you start becoming important? When do your needs start being prioritized? Mm-hmm. And what makes you believe that your needs don't need to be prioritized? Yep. That's how I handle that.
And when did that start happening for you?
Yep. This is 95% of the clients I work with. This is what I work on with them. Learning their values, verbalizing their values, learning about boundaries. And I just actually said this recently to a client because her thing was, I've always been a people pleaser. We work on that. What type are you? What type of attachment did you have? Why is it hard for you to say no? Did you see your parents struggling to say no? Were you always that child that had to say yes to please people? So we work on all of that.
Yep.
But then I find with particular clients, they're like, I don't want to make anybody feel bad, or I feel guilty when I say no or set boundaries, but I also feel guilty when I don't. So I'm like, okay, if it comes down to making this person mad or yourself mad, who you want to make mad? Like, because at the end of the day, if somebody got to be mad, it doesn't have to be you. You maintain your boundaries. You learn to say no, because if you have to continue to say yes and be exhausted, eventually you're not going to be able to say yes or no to anybody. So I am very direct with clients when I'm working on boundaries. We talk about, do you have porous boundaries? Do you have rigid boundaries? All types of things. We talk about boundary types. A lot of times people struggle with time boundaries. They don't know how to balance their time. Like, I give so much time to work. or I give too much time to my partner or whatever. We work on time boundary, finance boundaries. It's a whole list of boundaries to work on.
And I also say, what's the worst that's going to happen? Since, typically people always jump to the negative of a situation. So I ask them, okay, well, what's the worst outcome? And then we go from there. Okay, can you live through this worst outcome? If they say no, and they say, oh yeah, I can live through that. Okay. Next, let's move on. And so I try not to make it such a catastrophizing thing. If you say no, then okay, we can move on to the next thing. I always tell people that no, yeah, you can hear no, but sometimes no is just a redirection.
Yeah.
No doesn't mean stop or any of that. It just means redirect yourself.
I love that too. I learned that in my later on in adulthood, but it helps so much just with living life.
Yep.
It really does. Yep. The other thing, never mind. I lost my train of thought because I commented on something else. Never mind.
Y'all, we gonna have to take these last few questions.
We have to. They good. Y'all want to? Can we? Can we?
Y'all don't ask any more questions. We love y'all, but don't ask any more.
Who's out here begging for questions? Take them questions.
We're gonna take them. We're gonna take them. These last two are good ones.
Listen, let's see. If a person wants to start therapy, but they aren't sure how to start the conversation or what they should say, how do you suggest they start?
For instance,
if
a person has a hard time telling other people their inner thoughts or feelings, this is a good one.
It is. You know what I noticed with clients coming to therapy for the first time? If they actually make the appointment and keep the appointment, when they sit down in front of that screener in that office, I promise you, almost every client I've ever had, the minute I say, so what brings you to therapy today? I have had breakdowns in that, just from that one question, because once you're ready to go to therapy, it actually becomes easier than you think to open up, because that therapist is going to try to connect with you and build rapport and tap in. So usually when I ask that first question, what's brought you to counseling today? People pour it out. It becomes, and if you struggle to pour it out, just think, what made me finally make that appointment? And just say that.
You must have the magic sauce, because first with kids and families,
kids different.
Yeah. When I ask the parent what brought y'all to therapy, everything coming out, right? Every single thing is coming out. And I'm like, okay, hold on, reel it back in. Let's but when it comes to adults, I've actually, it just depends, right? So I've worked with a lot of military men, and absolutely not. They come in and I'm like, what are you here for? Well, somebody said therapy would be good. So, and it's like pulling for like a month or two. And then finally they kind of start to get comfortable. So I guess my answer to this is, it is kind of your therapist's job to help you first understand what their role is as your therapist, help you understand what the purpose of therapy is, and then help guide you to the place where you start to feel comfortable sharing your inner thoughts. Because you also have to trust that person. You have to trust that they're not going to judge you when you do share your inner thoughts, because sometimes we have thoughts that we're like, oh, if anybody ever knew that I thought this, they would think that I'm like mean or crazy or something. So it comes down to your therapist to really help you feel that. And also you being open-minded and just kind of really enjoying the process of therapy.
If it were me, I would ask this person, what are their expectations of therapy? Because sometimes people have their own perception of what they think therapy is. So if they have a hard time coming or wanting to start the conversation, I would ask them what their expectations are, and their expectations of me, and even the expectations of themselves.
Yeah. With the conversation, I wonder if she's asking, how do you suggest that the person that needs therapy starts the conversation? I'm not sure if
with the people around her or like in the session.
For the person that actually needs therapy. That's I just wanted some clarification before I do answer it. Like, are you asking
like in the session or before they made the decision to go to session?
How the person that needs the therapy starts when they get into therapy, when they get into the therapy office, not what the counselor would say. Okay, the person that needs therapy. What would you suggest that they say when they got into the office? So immediately when they come into the office, they're going to get intake paperwork. They don't even really have to say anything at first. They're going to fill out their paperwork. What I would suggest is that when it says, why did you come to therapy today? They tell the truth. They tell, or even if they don't want to just go ahead and pour out all their family business or pour out all their business, just start with the thing that's bothering them at that time or on that day that they're on, or the reason why they thought that they were starting therapy. So whenever the therapist says, well, what brings you in my office today? If it's, somebody threw coffee on me and I got into a fight, it's like, my family member said that I have trouble with my emotions. So even if they were to put it off on somebody else, the counselor is then going to pull out, okay, well, why your family member say that? They're going to start asking those probing questions, and that's going to get the person in the mood to start being like, well, probably because of this and probably because of that. So as counselors, we're skilled to pull out the information that we need. They just have to give a little bit. So just tell them to give the smallest amount of what they feel at that time. And if it's, I'm just mad, I'm always mad, they can say that. They can say the smallest thing, whatever their smallest truth is, that, and they don't have to feel like they're telling all their business, especially if they're a private person. Tell them to give their smallest truth.
Yep. And the caveat to that, because like for me, I'm solely telehealth. So I only see clients telehealth. So they actually do their intake paperwork before they even see me. That has to be completed before that first session. So I usually have an idea. So like Auntie Shiv said, as the therapist, because that question is there on the intake, what's brought you to therapy? If they just write something real simple, I have an idea of what to then start the session by saying or asking. So that really helps people, and it draws out what needs to be drawn out. But I have had clients who were tougher. I've had male clients who struggle. I don't know, I'm just here because my girlfriend told me I needed to come to therapy. I'm a big proponent now of silence. All right, we can sit here because
you ain't no proponent of silence.
I was about to say, you don't even like silence.
My clients,
we go silent on here, girl. You be
not on here, but with my clients, I've learned, because it was always a struggle for me in school, and my professors were always like, you have got to implore silence, even if it's awkward for you. Do not say anything. Just let that client talk. Don't ask a question. Don't say anything. It took me over a year to get comfortable in a session with it just being quiet, because I'm like, all right, I got to say something because they don't know what to say. Now I'm just like, oh, we can sit here, or you could tell me what's going on.
I make jokes and we just shoot the shit until you feel comfortable enough to just talk. Like I had somebody today where I was pulling, and I was like, let's just joke, because I could use a good laugh right now anyway. And like we just joked and we just talked, and it was an intake, and that's what you call motivational interviewing, because now I'm making jokes, now we're just talking, and then now you're feeling more comfortable, now you're at ease, now your nervous system and mind is talking, and now we can start getting to the problem. Because somebody doesn't always have to say, my wife told me I need to come here. Somebody could just be like, you know what, I got mad when that happened, and I'm like, well, why you get so mad at that? Do you get mad like that all the time? And then that's how you start to get the ball rolling.
Right. Right. Jokes, I normally compliment. So whatever I see on the person or whatever I find that is cute, I'll go be like, oh girl, that's cute. Or, then it'll start the conversation rolling. I still like, where you get that from? Girl, hook me up. Like, just like little small talk stuff. So yeah, I agree. The small talk and the conversation.
Yep. Humor is
another. Go ahead, Ash. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying humor is a therapeutic tool. So it's good jokes and humor in session.
Now I'm just funny regardless, but still.
No.
Yes, you are. Oh my God. I was just gonna say, I've when I do have clients where it's really hard for a long time to get anything out of them, no matter how cool, down to earth I am, just some people are just not, like, they're just not talkers. I've had them like write out what it is that they're struggling with the most and bring it back to session. And that's also been really helpful because it relieves the pressure of having to say it out loud to someone else, but we're also looking at it together. I've had times where I would say, like, if you don't want me to see it, you just write it out so you can kind of like see it visually, and then you can come in and talk to me about it. Because that also helps them write more freely if they know that no one else is going to see it. But that has been helpful, including the writing aspect whenever they're just not talkers. They just can't gather their thoughts, or they're just not ready to let it out.
Yo, we are not answering Abe's last two questions because they too
No,
Your wife.
we're not.
Ask your wife.
We're not doing that.
Her dissertation thing. Ask your wife once we off the live. We'd have told you you don't know how to maintain boundaries. We told you to stop.
Okay, we have one last question, and it's not that detailed. It's long on here, but it's not that hard. And I think we've answered it before, but we should answer it again too. But for suggestions for people who need mental health counseling services but can't afford them because either no therapists in their area accept their insurance or the options are very limited in their area. What are our suggestions?
Watch the clinical cookout.
No, because we don't give diagnosis or any of that. So remember that this is just.
I mean, but you can go ahead and take in some good information. I'll be talking my shit. I don't know what you're talking about.
Why you get defensive?
Right?
Hey.
We can't diagnose them or nothing on here.
Okay, go ahead. I'm just playing.
But no, seriously, find there are. So I am private pay, meaning I do not. It's more so because I'm not fully licensed yet, and I can't because I have a private practice. But I do offer sliding scales, and I do offer payment plans. So find you somebody that maybe offers a sliding scale. I also know a lot of therapists who keep like 2 to 5 open spots for pro bono clients if they're in a good enough financial situation to do that. I do plan on doing that eventually. So basically, I'm gonna end up taking 2 to 5 clients for free. So
actually, tell me what a sliding scale is, though.
Okay, so a sliding scale basically is I might have a set rate. Like I have a set rate for individuals and couples, but you call me, you explain to me your financial situation. I will slide that scale to fit your budget. I will bring it down if I need to, but you have to maintain whatever budget we set at that point. They have payment plans. They have therapists who offer packages. So it's a lot of different ways. And then also community service centers or resource centers in a lot of areas will offer a couple of free sessions. Even if you can get 1 to 3 sessions, that's better than nothing. At least you get to talk for a minute.
What? I want to know if you offer a student discount.
Some places do. Some places do, but Abe, stop asking questions.
And actually, they get free counseling on the college campuses.
Yes, they do get free counseling on campus.
You can also get you a best friend that's a therapist.
No, Venicia, we're not going to do that. Remember, that's across our ethics.
I would also say look for like grant programs or grant projects in your community, which may not be like openly advertised because a lot of the times this is where someone has funded this project in the community, and a lot of the times it's free mental health services for whoever is the target population. Yep. And you usually don't need insurance for that. It just depends on if it's like going through the state or if it's a separate entity. But looking for grant projects is also another option if options are limited.
So also we never usually say it, but Medicaid is accepted by some therapists. Actually, a lot of therapists offer Medicaid. So what people can do is they can get online, they can go to their local therapist on psychology.com. What is it? Psychologytoday.com. And you can actually put in a therapist in your area, and you can actually look at that therapist and see what insurance they take. So whenever some people will say we take Medicaid, Medicaid is for low income. So even low income have access to therapy if they want it and if they need it.
Yes.
And there's Medicaid clinics. My supervisor, because he likes to give back to the community, he actually volunteers at Medicaid clinics because he knows that he's a prescriber and he is aware that the Black community, especially the underprivileged and the poor communities, especially, don't get the best mental health care. So he decided to go and prescribe there because he knows that if he prescribes there, then he's doing his due diligence and helping out underprivileged communities. So there are resources for underprivileged communities too.
And with Psychology Today, if you do decide to search for a therapist there, you can filter for anything. If you want to see a Black woman therapist who takes Medicaid in the state of wherever you live, you can put all those filters in and you will get hits. And remember, with telehealth, it does not have to be somebody that you can drive to. They can be anywhere in the state. And if they're accepting clients, you can see them. So if you live in Niagara Falls, they can be in New York City and you can see them through telehealth. So filter for exactly what you need if you plan to search online.
Also, one more thing is bartering. A lot of people barter. If some therapists know somebody that need their office painted, okay, I'll give you 10 free sessions for you to paint my office. That's not illegal. That's called bartering. I know a lot of therapists who actually do it, and they actually get some good services, and they actually are helping out the community also.
Hey,
So yeah, but my point is that
Thanks.
if you have a skill and you need some therapy, maybe offer it to a therapist and say, I'll do this for you for that. I know for a fact, I'm gonna go ahead and put this out there. When I start my private practice, if you could paint or you could put in some toilets or something like that, yes, I'll give you 10 free sessions. You know what? Come on, come talk. Or there might be some pro bono work. So there are ways to use to get what you want.
Yeah. It's some therapists who would never barter, but it is perfectly okay within all of our code of ethics to do so. I'm all for bartering. All right,
All right, y'all. He's done.
You done.
So that means we done. No, I'm just kidding.
Ask your wife those other questions.
Yeah, we're not doing that today. It's already been almost 2 hours. So, but that was good though. We got some good questions. Thank y'all.
It was, and I do want to put the disclaimer out there that if we have shameless plug, okay, here go. I'm on my Ashley. If you guys have episode suggestions, please go ahead and message them to the Clinical Cookout messenger, because we do like to talk about some of the things that you guys have questions about or just comments, and like we want your feedback. We want to be interactive, and y'all better do it now so y'all can say y'all knew us when.
Right.
I pushes over customer support, so you'll be talking to me when you do send it. I will be the person to give the information back to the rest of the aunties. So yes, be sure to send us some messages.
And
even if you like it, send it.
Listen, I'm not gonna keep saying this. I've been posting it daily almost. Just because you watch us, that's great. We love it. Please continue to watch us. But could y'all please go hit subscribe if you haven't? Like, it's a lot of non-subscribers who watch us faithfully. Go hit subscribe. Go hit like.
Can we do a true crime crossover episode? Hey, I do got something for that, matter of fact.
What?
Well, can you explain to me what that would look like?
I know.
Let's talk about that.
I don't know what, but there is a crime that happened, and I like feel a certain way about it, and it involves, a black woman and the white lady who was just killed, Eliza, something like that. I don't know. She was literally executed. It was horrific.
Oh my God.
She was killed, but there was a black lady, her killer. A black lady was raped a year before and went into the police station and did the rape kit and DNA. They didn't run the DNA. So for a whole year, he's been on the loose and killed that white lady. And then they did an interview, and the black lady was like, if y'all had caught his ass a year ago, and believe me when I told you, and this is a prime example of black women not being believed. And the only reason why they ran the DNA is because that white lady was killed. It's crazy. But she died. It was a brutal killing. Like, it was bad.
Jeez.
But yeah, it goes to show people don't believe black women when they get assaulted, disrespected, violent.
And Benicia, we won't be doing true crime yet, like a crossover episode, like Law and Order and what is it, Chicago PD? We will be working on doing a clinical cookout in person. So tell your friends about us. That's something that's in the workings. But Venetia gives us a lot of training advice too, because she's awesome, and I go to her for some things. So because she's actually a trainer. So
listen, everybody on here that's got a Facebook page, I want to see a review on the Clinical Cookout Facebook page. We need the stars and the reviews. Come on, y'all.
Run the numbers up. Don't y'all want the rest of the world to get these aunties? Come on, run our numbers up.
I don't know, child. They be coming up in here.
Keisha don't want no more suitors coming for her.
Man, go. Anybody?
Well, just a reminder to everybody, we will not be posting or releasing episodes on the weeks that we have our lives, but y'all might get a little mini every now and then. So our next episode is going to be next Friday on the 28th on YouTube at our regular time. We look forward to seeing y'all.
Mhm.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.